Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Goblin. This is GoblinCaveTV, and today we are looking at modern age role-playing systems for our weekly TTRPG book club. Just a note, the book club is probably not going to be going to stay weekly. We're looking to move it to fortnightly, mainly just for the cost of purchasing all these books, purchasing all the PDFs, and the reading and the time put in. And if we can space it out to a fortnightly, we can put in more time for each of these projects, for each of these books, which is probably going to be a benefit for all. I just want to put that right up front, that we're probably going to be moving it to fortnightly soon. As always, we have Syrinscape in the background, because Syrinscape make amazing audio for your role-playing and board gaming needs. You can play it for online, for offline games. It's all perfect for that. We're currently using the sci-fi version of their playlist with the House Party 2015. So that's what's in the background. Now, today we have the modern age. So this is going to be a series of looks into the age system, the adventure game engine, which is what age stands for. Last time we did a book club, we had a look at the fantasy age, which I was thoroughly impressed with. And this time we're looking at the modern age. So modern age hardcover book, and it's also got a world setting. So this is the World of Lazarus, which is a comic book world. And the one thing that's not the only thing, but the thing that the fantasy age lacked was a setting. So these are open world books. So modern age, fantasy age are open world settings where you can homebrew them or you can put them into your own setting. But this also released with a setting book as well, as a separate book, of course. So what is adventure age? What is modern age? Well, modern age is a simple rules medium system. It's lighter than most rules medium systems, so it'd be almost in between, but it wouldn't be anywhere close to, say, a Powered by Apocalypse games. So yeah, these are books where you can absolutely homebrew, and I like that. I get asked a lot of questions and about have you seen a homebrew for such and such on D&D 5th edition? And I'm like, why don't you just use this system instead? Oh, but it's a new system. That's why I love these systems, because they are perfect for anything you want. They are customizable, and they're made to be customizable, and they use the same solid system all the way through. That system is really, really basic. So the basics of the modern age, and for the adventure game system itself, adventure game engine, I should say, is a 3d6 system. So instead of rolling d20, which most people used to, adding your modifiers versus a difficulty class or target number, etc., this uses 3d6, two of which are the same color, one of which is different. We'll talk about that in a moment. And you are rolling with an ability modifier, maybe a focus modifier. Focus modifiers are +2s, versus a target number. So it's a really, really simple system, which is very familiar. It's just using different dice. And the target numbers are going to be different numbers, which is really easy to get used to anyway. If you've ever swapped from, say, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition to, say, a Pathfinder system, it's very similar. It feels right in the core mechanics, but the numbers are going to be different in the levels that you get. Especially Pathfinder levels can get very high with your rolls. Say difficulty class of 30 for like a lockpick, etc. But you won't get that in like a Dungeons & Dragons game. So it's very similar, and it works. And it'll be easy to pick up if you're used to any of those two systems I just mentioned. Probably the most primary systems on the market. Now, how it does things really differently, which is one part I really like, is they use something called stunts. So instead of having a 20 as your critical success, yay, they use something called stunts. So if you roll a double on any of those dice, So you've got 3 dice, so all you need is say 2 4s or 2 5s, etc. on all 3 of the dice. Doesn't matter which color they are. You trigger a stunt. Now a stunt is essentially a critical which you control. The different colored dice is called your stunt dice. It's used for a lot of different things, but its primary role is for giving you the amount of stunt points that you actually get from that. So you do have to succeed in your roll and also have doubles on any of the 3 dice. And if you do trigger that stunt, you get the value from your stunt dice. It may be a 1, it may be a 4, maybe a 6, etc. And you can then choose what stunt you have. The stunts have different values, so 1 to 5. And if you say you have a 5, you can choose multiples. You can choose a 1, a 2, and a 3. So is that, no, a 1 and a 3 to, like, that's what my stunts are going to. You can have multiple things in your stunt. Stunts can be anything from extra damage, yay, lame, extra attack, extra movement, so an extra movement without any consequences, essentially. You can have a quick reload, and that's just for combat. They have these stunts for social situations. They have these stunts for discovery and exploration. So if you're looking for clues in an office, you can actually use a stunt which forces the GM to give you more information, even if it doesn't exist. Oh man, that always is loud. So I've got live mic. I don't have my earplugs in because I like this to be nice, but thank you for thank you for being funny, Magic Man. I know what you're doing. So yeah, it feels like City of Mists. It has some familiarities, but it's more of a traditional side of a role-playing game compared to City of Mists, which is closer to a apocalypse world or apocalypse powered by apocalypse style. So the way I see it is that the City of Mist is a apocalypse powered by apocalypse style game, which is very narrative based and player driven, but it has a storyline which is not how powered by apocalypse games usually have, like an actual story fixed in, whereas this is close to that style. That's why I call it's rules medium, but it's a very light version of that. And you have a lot of narrative control when you're doing even with these criticals. And because you're only looking for a double, like matching 2 of these dice out of 3, it's going to happen a lot. And they'll be triggered a lot, and there's a lot of variations. And Fantasy Age has a lot of these. There's a companion which adds a few more. The Modern Age being the 3rd generation of this, of course, Dragon Age being the first, Fantasy Age being second, and Modern Age being the 3rd. This has more, and it has more for the setting. So it's got things like reloading your weapons and stuff like that, like for more rifles and modern weapons, etc. So yeah, the investigations where you can force the GM to give you an extra clue is, yeah, very much a narrative style. I totally agree. But I just, the styles, I think it works really cool. But the GM can always go, look, no, there's nothing more to do. An example of that was even this week when we were running a Pathfinder 2 game and we had a player get a critical on their search roll to find the trigger for a secret door. Like, I had to, it was a secret roll because that's how Pathfinder does things. So the player didn't know he got a critical, and I just had to explain you don't find anything. And then the next person did a search. I was like, you also don't find anything. Also, a really high roll, but there was no actual trigger. So the GM can always say, look, there's nothing else. You can't always force the GM to go, ugh, and make something up on the spot. Sometimes it's tiring. But it's an open system which would work really well. But that's the core mechanic, which is the stunts, and it's a really important mechanic because it really opens up the game quite a lot. It really does open up the game quite a lot. Now, the 2 things that this changes from Fantasy Age is what we looked at the last time we did a book club. So this has been the third generation of the Age system. This is a classless system. So Fantasy Age had 3 classes: fighter, rogue, and magic user. And I say magic user, not cleric or mage, because the magic user couldn't go any direction they wanted. This is totally classless. It does have magic, so if you want to have a magic or power or empowered character, you're losing a few things at the start. You're trading a few abilities for that in character creation. But you can have this as a superpowers style game where you have everyone having that, and you just give it for free. You'll just say, okay, you all have the ability to have magic. And in that case, you can have this as a superpower game, as a comic book game. You could have it as a, okay, at level 4, you can then have your powers. And the GM can then really customize the game to their setting, to how they want to play the game, how they want to run their world, because again, it's an open world setting. If you're not using the add-on World of Lazarus world book. So it's kind of an interesting way of doing things. The abilities are 3d6 to get your like 1 to 18, also 3 to 18. But once they're done, once you've rolled that, you then compare it to a table, and the table is just going to give you like minuses, like a -1, -2, 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. And that's the focus. So once you've converted them across to those pluses and minuses or zeros, that's it. You get rid of the 1 to 18, and that you never use that again. That's not even marked on your sheet. It's just your minus, like your 1, 2, 3, or your -1, -2, etc. That's about all you're working with for the most part. You're not looking at super high numbers. Essentially, you're just focusing on that. And 1 is average. So having 2 is above average. Having 3 is really above average. And you can have -1 and -2 on your stats as well. And it just makes things normal. It's just how things work. You can still make your targets. You can still make your difficulty numbers. Because you're rolling 3d6. You might have a -2 that roll. Sure. You may have a focus also in that roll, which helps you. Now, the other part is when you're going up levels, you can also, at least it wasn't the Fantasy Age. I would need to check this in the Modern Age. And I think it's going to be across the way. But actually no, it wouldn't be, because that was the class-based system. Okay. So in the Fantasy Age, in the classes, your classes had primary and secondary abilities, and you had to level up both in alternating levels. So you could actually have that -2 and have to have a focus with a -2 ability to cancel out that -2. So it kind of really works. And having a -2 isn't that bad. It's just a -2 to a 3d6 roll. Not that bad. But again, this is a classless system. I went off on a tangent. So there's something here I wanted to read as well. We'll go to the sheet. So before we get started on the PDF, which is in front of us here, there is a shader on this. It's about a 10%, maybe 15% shade, just because like I wear glasses mainly because of white light and white PDFs and stuff. So there's just a shade over it. A comparison is what's down below is the exactly same picture as what's on the PDF right now. So just give that level of like, okay, that's how much it's shaded. So this is the whole table of contents. It's quite lengthy. It's not a huge book. It's not like a Pathfinder 2, like 500, 600 page book. I've actually found bigger books recently for later reviews. So it's actually a digestible content. It doesn't have a lot of fluff. It's about giving you the primary powers to run a game and to run a game how you want, which is really, really cool. So it does have a good mix of powers. The one thing I will say is for spellcasting and powers, the adventure game engine doesn't have a lot of it. So in the Fantasy Age, you don't have many spells when you're a spellcaster, and it's the same when you're moving across to the Modern Age. You're not going to get many spells. So you can probably up that for the GM if you wanted more spells for the players, but I would probably keep it low because the spells are pretty powerful in their own context. And if you're going to have it as a superpowered or superhero style thing, or even modern age hacking, or like almost a Shadowrun style of magic, I still wouldn't go over the top. I'd still probably keep it contained, because this is where the playtested will be, is like playtested to this is fair and this equals out to everybody. So it kind of works for that. And there's even like the spells themselves also work with the modern environment. They've altered the spells to work with the modern environment. That was one thing I was really impressed with. So you got the game masters. So you got the player section as well, and the table of contents for the player section. Awesome. You got a separate section for the game master section. So they've really made it clear that this is different. This is not for the players, and I like that in the table of contents. A lot of them don't really do things. They do have a what is role playing, and I've read through, and it's pretty much the normal of everything else. So it's yeah. So it's pretty much the same as everything else. And I read through the what is role playing last time from the Fantasy Age, so I probably won't go through it here. But it's the conversation. It's about working together to tell a story, and etc. So yeah, we'll go into the next part, because I want to talk. So I wanted to go to this part. So the adventure game engine. So the adventure game engine rules. So adventure game engine's rules system is known. Modern Age's rules system is known as the Adventure Game Engine, or Age. It is originally designed for Dragon Age RPG, also by Green Ronin Publishing. It has since been adapted into Blue Rose, the RPG role-playing game of romantic fantasy. I don't think I'm picking this up, I'm sorry. Don't think I'm picking up that one. And the Fantasy Age role-playing game. The games aren't identical, but they share the same DNA. Learn one and the other should be easy to pick up. And it is very similar. Like the Fantasy Age, almost identical to this. There's a couple of changes. Really simple to pick up. Really easy to interchange. Modern Age is different from the other Age games, as it doesn't use character classes. It reorganizes the stunts and has a few other differences, all of which are easy to absorb and noted throughout the book. So it's pretty much the same DNA as the others. It doesn't have, like, the main thing is it doesn't have the classes. And the next thing is that there's 3 different ways to play. Now, that's what we're going to have a look at now. The 3 modes. They have a gritty mode. They have a pulp-ish style and a cinematic mode. So the gritty mode, in the gritty mode, the characters are can be almost as easily injured as people in real life. A well-placed bullet takes them out of the fight. They can develop great expertise in their chosen fields, but are unable to perform truly outrageous stunts in gritty mode. So the gritty mode exists to support games that are supposed to feel more realistic. So this is one where it's almost, I wouldn't say it's like Call of Cthulhu, where like that amount of danger, but that's the style. You're looking for gritty realism. You're looking for real danger, and characters are not going to be superheroes. That's probably one you probably wouldn't have spells for, because that's kind of a bit weird. The pulpy mode. In the pulpy mode, I don't like pulpy. So pulp is a mode, but pulpy is sounding weird. Characters are portrayed as more overly heroic, so more overtly heroic in their action heroes. They're tough, and they get tougher. They can accumulate levels. They can perform the odd heroic tasks and benefit handsomely out of strokes of luck, etc. They still bleed. They can get overwhelmed, but they're a bit more powerful. In cinematic mode, that's your comic book heroes. It's just, you're there. You're like, it's more of an AD&D or Pathfinder, where you are the adventurers, you are the heroes. It's hard to defeat you, and you'll wipe through minions, etc. Now, all throughout this book, and I really like this, how they've done it. They've color-coded those 3 sections, yet all throughout this book, you'll see these like little bits here, those colors pop up. There's stunts only for gritty mode. There's stunts only for cinematic and pulpy mode. There's, when it goes to hit points, it'll clearly show you what hit points when you level up go for each mode. Gritty mode, I think you're only getting 1. Hey, Polly, welcome in. So gritty mode, you're like only getting like 1 hit point per level, but you're getting more and more for the others. Even your starting hit points are different. Your enemies are different. It all changes depending on which mode you're doing. And because they're using those 3 different colors, it's clear throughout the book. It is so obvious when you're looking through things. Oh, that's the mode I'm doing. That's the mode we're doing for this setting. Bang, that's the one we have to read. And it makes it really simple. Now, one of my favorite zombie apocalypse games, which is called Infected, has 3 different modes. It has a gritty mode of survival. Oh. Welcome, I'm a Nick Chick. I am Nick Chick. Welcome in, welcome to the Goblin Cave, and thank you for supporting us. We love more people for our community. We've got a Discord, we've got a YouTube, which this will be uploaded into shortly. Thank you for joining our system, our team. So yeah, as I was saying, Infected is my most favorite zombie apocalypse game. It has that gritty mode, it has a cinematic mode, and etc. And everything goes throughout the system with those 3 things. This is the same. So if you're looking to homebrew, you can easily customize it. Okay, which one are we going to use? And it's just so easy to find where those are throughout the notes, throughout the book. And it just works. It really just works for finding things in the book. Now, without going into all the different bits and pieces, other things that I want to really note is, so combat, pretty simple. You have your attacks, so you have your dex ability check for your initiative, highest initiatives go first, etc. One thing of note, which is different from some systems, is that armor absorbs damage instead of just making you harder to hit. So the more common systems, Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, armor is to stop being hit, yet other systems such as the Cyberpunk Red and Shadowrun, etc., armor absorbs damage. So once the actual hit is done, you then calculate damage, and then when you're taking that damage, you just minus the armor value to stop that from getting through. I like those systems. I actually really, really like those systems. I've done medieval fighting myself back when I was younger, back when I was naive and innocent and joining medieval societies. Armor doesn't stop you from being hit. You're still going to get hit. It just stops the damage. And that's what I like about these style of systems. It's kind of really nice to have that in a game. Although Cyberpunk Red and Cyberpunk Red and The Witcher goes a little bit further, where your armor can also degrade and doesn't absorb as much every time you hit. This one doesn't go that far, but it still has still has at least the absorption of damage. But that's all I really wanted to go into for this time. I'm going to end this as the YouTube clip, and then we can just go into chatting. So if you are watching YouTube, click and subscribe and all that bits and pieces. Check out our other TTRPG book club stuff. And if you are looking to homebrew stuff, if it's a modern age, have a look at this. If it's a class-based fantasy version, like a fantasy game, I recommend Fantasy Age. If you're classless for fantasy, go for BRP, Basic Role Playing from Chaosism. But this is a really, really interesting one. I can't believe I missed this. I might have to try to pick up D20 Modern, because that was always one which was like always in the background for many years. But it's kind of based on the D20, like the 3rd edition style D&D game. But for YouTube, I'm going to sign off and stop the recording, but we're going to keep on for chatting here. So